For number 11, you can multiply by the conjugate of 2i, which would be negative 2i, or you can just do negative I over negative I. It's still equal to 1, and it's still going to get rid of the I in the denominator. So if you do that, you get 5i, and then minus 4i squared over negative 2i squared. So you get 5i plus 4 over 2, right? Because I squared is negative 1, so this is 2. And then you just separate it. The real goes first, so it'd be 4 over 2 plus 5 over 2i, which simplifies to 2 plus 5 halves I. So remember, when you're simplifying powers of I, you are dividing the exponent by 4 and just looking at the remainder. So for the first one, this is 2 remainder 2. So I'm looking at the remainder 2, so then this would be I squared. And then 7 divided by 4, that's 1 remainder 3. I'm looking at 3 only, so I bring it down as negative I to the third. And then the next one, 4 divided by 4, that's 1 remainder 0, so then it's plus I to the 0. And then I squared is just I squared for now. Okay, so I squared is negative 1. I cubed is negative I, but then there's a negative in front of it, so it becomes plus I. This is 1, and this is negative 1. Okay, so 1 minus 1 here is 0. Sorry about that. So this one cancels, and you're just left with negative 1 plus I. Okay, 13 is the same. I take the exponent divided by 4. That's 3 remainder 3. So that's negative I cubed. And then 12 divided by 4 is 3 remainder 0. So that's minus I to the 0. And then 9 divided by 4 is 2 remainder 1. So that's plus I. And then 7 is 7 divided by 4, 1 remainder 3. So this is I cubed. So I cubed is negative I, so this is negative I, but then there's a negative in front of it, so it's I. Negative I to the 0 is negative 1, because anything to the 0 power, any non-zero to the 0 power is 1. And then plus I, just copy it down, and I cubed is negative I. So right here, these cancel out, that's 0. And then just write it in standard form, negative 1, the real part goes first, and then the imaginary. Alright, so here I set up the polynomial. The zeros were 1, negative 2, and 2 minus I radical 3. Well, this one needs a conjugate, so even though they didn't give you this one, you guys are supposed to know that it goes there. Okay? So the next step is I'm going to simplify each parentheses as much as possible. So the first one's fine the way it is. The second one, x plus 2. The third one, I'm going to distribute the negative, so I get negative 2 plus I radical 3. And then the last one, again, distribute the negative, so I get this. Okay, so I'm going to multiply the two binomials together, and then I'll multiply the two trinomials together. So it's x squared plus 2x minus x minus 2. And for this one, I'm just going to do the 3 by 3. So x minus 2 I radical 3 and x minus 2 minus I radical 3. It's a multiplication chart. So here I have x squared, negative 2x, negative ix radical 3, negative 2x, 4. Then I've got 2I radical 3. And then ix radical 3, negative 2I radical 3, and negative I squared radical 9. I'll simplify it in the next step. So here we see that this one and this one become 0, they cancel out. And then this one and this one, same thing, 0. And these two combine. And right here, this one is positive right here because minus I squared is negative, so, and then square root of 9 is 3, so this is actually positive 3. So I have, I'll bring down the first one, just as, sorry, let me simplify it first, sorry. So 2 minus x is x, and then from this grid I get x squared minus 4x, and then 4 plus 3, 7. So I can make another grid to get the final answer. So x squared, x minus 2, and then x squared minus 4x and 7. Or you can just distribute like that and then do the next one, and then do the, you could do it that way. So I'm just multiplying across. X cubed okay, so combine your like terms. So we have these two, and then we have these 3, and then we have these 2 right here as like terms. So your final answer would be f of x is x to the 4th minus 3x cubed plus x squared plus 15x minus 14. So here's the setup. The zeros were 0, so that's here. 3, negative 4i, and again, because the negative 4i was a 0, the positive 4i also had to be a 0. Okay, these come in conjugate pairs. So I'm going to simplify and write it as x. I don't need the 0 anymore. X minus 3, x plus 4i, x minus 4i. So I'm going to multiply these two and these two. So that gives me x squared minus 3x. Over here it's x squared. Now remember, this is we're going to end up getting rid of the two middle terms, but I'll show you anyway. Negative 4ix plus 4ix minus 16i squared. So this just comes down. These two, 0, and this is actually plus 16. So this ends up being x squared plus 16. So we're going to distribute x to the 4th plus 16x squared minus 3x cubed minus 48x. Put it in standard form and you're done. So it's this one first, then this one, then the 16x squared, and the negative 48x.